Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Audio Fanfics and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto became a blood-wielding hemomancer and chose darkness, drawing Fu, Mabui and Ryazetsu into his despair-bound harem. Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. No Hokage-sama, we still have not located the culprit behind the explosion in the red light district. We have Inuzuka trackers working with the Hyuga to aid us, but progression has been unfavorable. As per your instructions, we have issued that the result of the explosion was from an uninvestigated drug chemical compound in the building instead of a shinobi attack by a disguised Anbu agent. We've yet to ascertain a motive or even if the person is a spy or a traitor. We will keep posting details, a Jonin quickly said with a firm salute. Hiruzen breathed a piece of smoke from his pipe. Good. Make sure the relief efforts for the civilians takes priority. Many have lost loved ones already. I'd like us to not lose more, the leader of the village answered back. The Jonin gave a bow for an answer then swiftly departed from the Hokage's office. This left Hiruzen alone for the moment. The Sandaime exhaled and leaned his back into his chair. No trace of residual chakra, and because of the sewer system the person's smell was completely covered. An Anbu dead, and an injured Jonin in the pursuit were the force's casualties. Whoever this person is, they are a powerful shinobi and a very serious threat. Hiruzen thought to himself. He had been pulled into staying at the Hokage mansion since late last night. The amount of deceased that had been reported to him had been very unsettling. He had been there to watch his shinobi pull out the charred corpses which had burned in the flames. Many mourned the loss of their unorthodox co-workers. Yet, coincidentally, one person was not among the ashes. Hiruzen pulled out a folder from his lower desk. Takamura Shingen, the owner of the Red Dragon which had burned down, held a picture that was upon the folder. Sarutobi folded his arms and stared at the picture as if it was mocking him. The reason for this was because, though evidence pointed otherwise, Takamura Shingen, though civilian, was a powerful figure within the underground world of Konoha. Drug smuggling, weapons trade, trafficking, fights to the death, the man did all of it and more. Hiruzen had been trying to pin him for years, but it had never worked. The man always had an alibi, friend, co-worker, visitor, who could attest to him not being remotely involved to anything happening. Hiruzen loathed to admit it, but Shingen had brought in extra money to Konoha's welfare though through seedy means. He was the only one not found among the destruction. From the few times Hiruzen had watched the torture and interrogation department probe the man for information, Takamura didn't seem like the type to be captured so easily. It only seemed to make this apparent apprehender even more formidable. The true question plaguing the Hokage's mind though was, what did they need him for? There are many angles to explore before the light reveals itself, the aged Cage said before he found his door open without waiting for his acceptance. He noticed the council appear before him. There were 3 of them and, with the addition of himself, structured the governing body of Konohagakure no Sato. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Kaharu Udatane, Homura Mitokado, and Danzo Shimura, this was the Council of Konoha and the members who ensured the continued perseverance of the Will of Fire. We may have to take drastic measures. It is troubling knowing that an Anbu agent could turn rogue. It would be in our best interest to have all Anbu scanned and questioned, Hiruzen. Homura said. The Hokage stood to his feet and stared out the window. He glanced down at his village, his home. People moved with purpose and dignity. It's not as if this hasn't happened before. Uchiha Itachi was one of the most prominent Anbu in the force and has deserted as well. We should operate under the idea that there is possibly more than one person. We might be preparing for war, Danzo said. Hiruzen released a breath upon hearing that. They had just been through one war. Was there truly a need to have another one? Speculating and talks of war only serve to promote paranoia amongst the populace. We have isolated this as a malfunction and it should stay that way until we have proper analysis. We must keep maintain the image of control or else civilians will start to doubt our authority. In addition, if we do suddenly assemble the Anbu, then the agent will know that we are aware of them. There are many things which can take place between sending out the order and all the Anbu assembling. For all we know, this could be the stepping stone to a greater plan. Koharu stated. And what plan would that be? Homura asked. Unfortunately, Koharu did not reply. She was not sure what this grand plan was either. Everything they had just spoken of was no more than mere conjecture. The four elders stood in the Hokage's office in silence. Each formed their own theories and motives behind the attack, but none were able to come up with a plausible cause. Pretty soon, the council felt a presence behind them. Hokage-sama, I apologize for my rude entrance. However, you ask that I bring daily reports as soon as possible about my monitorization of Uzumaki Naruto. Anbu agent. Neko reporting. The four elders turned around and Hiruzen took note of Yugao Azuki, codename Neko, waiting in silence for his permission. She would begin only when he granted her the right. Yes, he had assigned Neko to watch over Naruto. It was supposed to be a weekly status of her observations. As much as Hiruzen didn't believe that Naruto, of all people, would harm Konoha, there was a tension that Hiruzen wished would go away. He just hoped that it truly had been a prank all along. He prayed for some worthwhile news. Your report then, Neko. A brief one will do for now. We have more pressing concerns, Hiruzen said. Yugao firmly agreed. Though, if one could see behind her mask, then they would see just how unsettled she felt. Yet, by Naruto's orders, she was as still as the wind. Hi Hokage-sama, I saw the explosion. Unfortunately, while I was investigating the destruction, I had to leave Uzumaki Naruto for a time, so I'm unable to ascertain his actions for last night. However, from the near week that I have observed him, I have not noticed any suspicious behaviors. He is loud and boisterous, but he has not made any threatening actions against anyone. Though, he mostly keeps to himself. He spends most of his days training in the woods, she explained. The Sandaime breathed a sigh of relief that went unnoticed by most in the room. That was definitely better news than what he was being given at the moment. It seems Naruto-kun is taking my promise to heart. I only hope I am making the correct choices, Hiruzen thought to himself. He was ready to send her off, but the members of the council turned to him. You have an Anbu keeping watch of the boy. After the predicament we are facing, I think it would be prudent for all Anbu agents to place their full time and attention into this investigation. Do we have a need to be concerned over the boy? Homura was the one to ask. Everyone quickly took note of the Sandaime Hokage's visage. It was painted with sheer displeasure. Need I remind all of you how close we came to the Kyuubi being released on October 10th? Homura, Koharu, I had you both directly responsible of all civilian affairs unless it was a situation dire enough that it required my input upon handling the situation. Because of the village, I believe Naruto is harboring resentful feelings against Konoha. He was nearly killed that day. I am still in the process of investigating those behind the attack. It has grown larger than I had expected. I have had nearly 10 people imprisoned currently. You are supposed to be handling this. We have all always attempted to agree that the needs of Konoha are paramount. I do not believe it would fit in Konoha's best interest if the Kyuubi were to run amok with no one capable of stopping it. Hiruzen exclaimed with steel in his voice. Both elders felt a slight chill down their necks, but Koharu cleared her throat. I see. This is troubling news. Though Jinchuriki aren't well liked by your village, no matter the region, it would be best to err on the side of caution. The Biju are a symbol of each nation's military might. Though some of the nations have two, we have managed to attain the most powerful one in the Kyuubi. It wouldn't do well to have him resent the village. We will need him in case of war, Koharu explained. His grades are currently appalling. Clearly the boy needs to apply himself more if we are to make use of him. He will be a shinobi and we make use of all our shinobi. Though we have the strongest Biju, we also have the least experienced Jinchuriki handling it. Hiruzen, I believe it is time that you accepted this fact. The boy will never have a proper childhood. If we wish to utilize the power of the Kyuubi, then we must start quickly. Danzo earnestly, yet calmly, expressed. Sarutobi glanced between his council. They all seemed to be in agreement. Hiruzen had to agree as well. Something had to be done. He turned around and stared out the window. Very well. I agree that keeping Naruto-kun from learning of this is too much. We must make a move before someone says one word too many to him. However, I would say that we wait 1 year from now, Hiruzen said. The three elders, and Yugao, were surprised to hear this. Why so long? Unless, you do not believe he is ready for such training material at his current level, Koharu theorized. Naturally, Hiruzen remained silent for a moment. That is one part of it. I would also like him to have 1 more year to enjoy whatever of this time he has. For we all know he will be very busy from now on until his graduation exams in the year after the next. I would like for Neko to continue monitoring him for the time being. I want no more incidents like the last one. The Hokage said. Though there were some obvious protests, the elders agreed to the 1-year period before the blonde would be made aware of his status as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Yugao agreed to continue monitoring Naruto, though if one were able to access her thoughts then they would hear her plead to put as much distance between her and the boy as much as possible. Even now, she wanted to scream to them that it was too late to rely on him to protect the village. He was the one seeking to end it. This only served to increase her frustration. Hi, Hokage-sama, Yugao said and vanished from the room. The elders saw her go and they began to file out as well. Once Hiruzen watched them depart, he sat back in his chair and exhaled again. He really wished there was someone who would take the hat and all the responsibilities that came with it. He was too old to be handling this again. Deep beneath the surface of Konoha's bright streets, loud music as if booming with deep rhythm rocked an entire structure. Civilians and shinobi alike danced under a multiple of blazing lights and colors. The movement of bodies and glistening sweat stained the floorboards. In this world, having inhibitions was frowned upon, and being free was encouraged. On the surface, it was a spectacular house of rave parties. It was a place to eat, drink, dance, and flirt. A domain of paradise for all invited members to appreciate a new aspect of freedom that led itself away from the moral, civil aspects of a hidden village community. This is what was on the surface. Below the surface of this facade, this place was a den of disease from which the worst of male and female ambition took root. Drug trade, human trafficking, weapons trafficking, nothing was off limits in the lower regions of this society. Many local agents and leaders frequented this place, all under the mighty banner of Takamura Shingen, the one who had built this mighty empire of debauchery and corruption. Away from the blazing music, dancers, singers, and members ready to rave, agents of this empire sat together. Is there still no word of my husband? You are his appointed officers. Do your jobs. A very feminine, if aggressive, voice demanded. Those around her stilled. Ma'am, we're working as hard as we can, but it has proven difficult with regular shinobi and the additions of Anbu agents. We believe that it might have been through one of the rival leaders in another country. Shingen-sama has made many enemies. The woman scowled, but she knew that was correct. Of course her husband made enemies. In this profession enemies were as plentiful as prostitutes which lined the streets. She took a seat and quickly attempted to calm herself. Need I remind you that one of our financial suppliers happens to be an S-rank shinobi? It would be very unprofessional if the market declines because my husband is missing. This only happened last night. The culprit could not have gotten far. I want every associate of ours in the village looking for him. Work the nights if you have to. She exclaimed. The room was so silent. The only thing that could be heard was the sound of fish swimming in a fish tank embedded into the right wall. What would you have us do, ma'am? It is theorized that the person who kidnapped your husband would have to, at least, be someone of Jonin level. Entry into the Red Dragon is not easy. Plus, we only have active 2 Jonin within our fold in Konoha's walls. I think it would be difficult for our Chunin agents to work on apprehending the person silently. Should we have our Jonin operatives get involved? Another asked, his eyes sharp and his ears open to listen. The woman closed her mouth from what she was about to say. As much as she missed her husband, he would quickly admonish her if she asked rashly. Yes, I want Ko Hyuga and Santa Yamanaka in front of me in the next 12 who. She paused when everyone heard screams from behind the front door. Everyone pulled either kunai, shuriken, or even their own bladed weapons from underneath the table spread. At least 5 members of the Red Dragon group moved in front of boss's wife. Even she was armed. She would not have lived as long as she did if she wasn't. There was silence at the door. Everyone waited with bated breath. Their expectations were answered when the sliding doors were pushed apart. Nearly everyone stilled when they watched an Anbu come through. By the waistline and chest plate, it was obviously a female Anbu. She said not a word, but she took in everyone who was before her. None could tell of her surprise seeing so many people of Konoha who she would have not suspected of being contributors to the disorder of Konoha's stability. Yet, again, she said not a word. She stepped to the side and bowed her head, letting her body fall to one knee. This took them by surprise. Yet, nothing prepared any of them for when they noticed Uzumaki Naruto, container to the Kyuubi no Yoko, step through the door, blood upon his face. There was no doubt in anyone's mind whose blood it belonged to. So, Anbu Nichan, after nearly 20 years of warrants, searching, convictions, bails, and undercover assignments, you finally get to see inside the mighty Shingen's empire. Was it everything you wanted it to be? Naruto asked. Yugao did not reply. Naruto didn't expect one. No one was sure how to react, but the woman was the first. What is this? Some kind of joke by Konoha's authorities? Answer me, Anbu, she shouted at Yugao, but the purple-haired Kunoichi only kept her head bowed. Naruto kept walking until he was right in front of the table. Naruto took a calming breath. He had never done such a thing face to face before and his nerves were quickly racking, but he kept himself still. He stared at them. I'd suggest you Konoha dogs not focus on her. Instead, you can focus on me. I'll make this short. The Red Dragon, and all of its connections, I'm taking it. All of it, Datbeo. If you want to continue to work here, then that's fine, but only if you throw that woman in the lower cells, Naruto ordered. No one, not even Yugao, was exempt from pure shock upon their face. Yet, unlike Yugao, nearly everyone exploded in laughter enough to nearly drop their weapons. Yugao stared at Naruto's back. Yes, she could tell the laughing irritated him, but he showed a composure that a 10-year-old should not have had. Most likely he had picked up on more of her memories in remaining calm in stressful situations. But, she had to give slight praise, as much as she was loath to, that his application of her experiences seemed almost natural. The woman cleared her throat and pushed her guards out of her way. Ho ho ho, so it would seem the village prankster is out for his next big prank. It must admit it was a humorous one, but the likes of a brat, especially one like you, is not welcome here. You see, I have no problem killing children. They talk too much and all who talk must be silenced. Tell me, what would you do with the Red Dragon? She asked. The blonde watched her movements carefully. He could see the flowing beats of her heart. She was very calm. She had every right to be after all. What would I do with the Red Dragon? I think you mean what will I also do with the Red Dragon? Anbu Nichan does good work delivering packages. They just explode great surprises, don't they? Naruto asked. Humor left everyone's face. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki's eyes darkened. Ah, that got them going. Now, just like I practiced. The young academy student replied to himself. He rested his head just above his wrist. Having any luck finding your husband? I'm sure your son might be worried about him. Who knew he went to the same academy as me? Maybe he'll disappear too. You never know, he said. The woman quickly scowled, but before everyone could utter a word, one of her guards dashed at the blonde with surprising speed. The guard roared with his sword overhead. You disrespectful piece of demon filth. How dare you threaten Shingen-sama's son? He shouted. His sword shined under the light of their conference room. However, the guard wondered why he had gone from looking at the blonde who had just wished ill fortune on his boss's son to staring at the ceiling. He even saw his blade floating in front of him. With the help of the lights, and the shimmer of his blade, he found his answer. He saw his body drop to the ground to the shock and horror of all while his head spun in the air dislocated from its shoulders. It then crashed near the front of the door that both intruders had entered from. Just before he died, he noticed the Anbu standing in front of the one he had tried to protect, in one hand a blade of steel. Yet, in the other hand, it was a blade of dark, pulsing red evil. It looked almost tangible in form and it was crafted like a sword. It looked as red as blood. His eyes rolled into the back of his head and he faded away into the afterlife. Any more volunteers? Naruto asked. Yugao slowly relaxed her stances with her blade of steel, and blade of blood, in both hands. Having looked at so many books, and the hours he had put in, along with Yugao's experiences in swordplay and sword maintenance, Naruto was easily able to fashion a blade for his friend. Even better, he glanced at the small scar he had made on her wrist. It was actually her own sword, so to speak. No one said a word for a moment, but quickly two more guards dashed for them both. Yugao's eyes hardened. Yes, these people were all the scum of the earth. Yes, Konoha had been trying to take them down for years. Yes, she was glad to be rid of them. However, frustration was prevalent upon her soul. She was not doing this because Konoha had gathered the evidence. She was not doing this to save any more poor people from being exploited. She was doing this to further her lord's agenda. Yugao jumped dashed for one of the guards. The clash of metal rung in the room when their blades collided. However, the guard stood not a chance when she swung her blade of blood for his midsection. He fell to the floor in pain, but Yugao quickly severed his head just like the previous one. However, she allowed the other to pass her by merely because Naruto had told her to. He watched the man charge for him. He could see the man's pumping heart. So much easy material to work with. He asked for the blood to harden and it followed his command. One thing Naruto noticed was that blood for humans was much denser than blood for animals, thus it was much more difficult to form and bend, but he had a lot of practice last night. Raising his hand into the air, Naruto took a hold of the force which compelled the blood to obey him. In an act which quieted anyone who might rebel against him, he pulled his arm to himself and the most agonizing screams were heard from the guard as at least 20 rows of blood spikes bursted from his chest, killing him instantly. He dropped down and fell in front of the blonde. The Kyuubi container tried not to let his thoughts linger for too long. He was sure he would tremble if he did at the idea of his first kill. Yet, he couldn't falter now. If he did, this really would be the end of him and he couldn't allow that. A slow exhale made him calm his nerves. He turned to the rest of them. The blood from all three guards slowly drifted into the air. Each combined with the other until it formed a spherical ball at the center of Naruto's palm. He then imagined it as thin as possible. He imagined it as long as possible. A grin, he formed upon his face and he threw the blood into the air once again. However, as it splashed through between them all, the vital fluids quickly formed over 100 rows of Senbon-like needles ready to pierce any and all flesh. Given the tight space, and the many rows, escape was not possible. Any more takers? I'm always happy to take more blood donations. Naruto said. He noticed Yugao still remained between him and the others. So you're finally showing your true colors, demon. I knew that old bastard of a Hokage was too trusting to let you live. One of them said, to which the others silently cursed. They did not want to die for another's stupidity. Even if they felt she was right. However, the only thing they all received was a smile. The others shivered when a blood spike pierced the mouth of the one who spoke, making her drop dead as well. Naruto turned his hand and pointed the rest of his arsenal at his latest victims. All aboard the next trip to the afterlife. All that is required for entry is you opening your damn mouths one more time unless I say so. The blonde grunted out. Color seemed to drain from everyone's faces. Yugao was not sure how she was supposed to take this. She was an Anbu, yes. She held valuable experience and wisdom which could hold the fate of a village in someone's hands, but, with just her memories, her lord was able to do this. We'll beat this, somehow. Hayate replied. Desperately, Yugao wanted to believe those words, but, now the blonde had not just acquired her memories, but also the memories of the leader of Konoha's underworld. If he gained any more, what would become of them? What would become of her? Would she ever be able to get free from his grasp? She could feel hope slipping away. As her hope slowly drained away, she was brought back to her deal with her lord, her deal with the devil. She found herself despairing. Would Hayate kill her? She wondered what went through the minds of everyone around them both. She could see them lowering their weapons, aware of their own pointless struggle. She could feel the surge of pride radiating from her lord, for he had won once again. This 10-year-old boy, who sought the destruction of Konoha, had placed himself in a smaller goal to do so. She had helped with that. She had been instrumental in that. What could she say? Would death be enough to fix her mistakes? What are you all doing? My husband won't stand for this. Do you not know how I am? I am Kai Shingen. My husband will have your heads for this. You will all pay for this. MMMMPHHM. The wife of Takamura Shingen said before she was gagged by one of the opposing officers. Take her to the cells. Tell them, the Red Dragon organization is under new management. One of them said, their voice filled with uncertainty and fear. Though, whether this was fear of the blonde behind them, or whether it was fear that the boss's wife would actually go through with her threats, it was anyone's guess. The woman was quickly removed from the presence of everyone, which left the officers in front of the blonde. They stared at him. He stacked back. He closed his eyes and slowly lowered the spikes he had controlled. I knew we'd all see it my way eventually. It took me some time to see the village's way too, so I won't hold it against you. Now, we can talk like I wanted to do from the beginning, Naruto explained. He watched their breathing settle. Look at their eyes. They were so full of hope, so full of relief, so full of joy, that they might live to see the rise and fall of the sun. How he loved those expressions. Just like the ones he had worn. His first direct kill fresh in his mind, Naruto swung his hand down. Let them learn just as he had learned. Screams filled the entire conference room. Hundreds of spikes of blood stabbed through the wall, and the blood of those inside flowed out like a wonderful stream of red. He and Yugao stared at his work. It was then that the Kyuubi container fully took in the fact that he had just ruthlessly murdered the people in front of him. He damn near came close to spilling his guts over the floor, but he managed to hold on just enough that this did not happen. I'm going to have nightmares about this. I just know it, Naruto thought. The blonde held out his hand and he watched the blood upon the floor, the walls, and the table swirl into his hands before it was absorbed into his body. Perhaps he would have to start thinking of getting some kind of container. This much blood was beginning to make him feel sick. Perhaps another item for storage would need looking into. I don't understand, Yugao said. This got Naruto to turn back to her. Silently, Yugao had watched Naruto effortlessly crush the hope of all the men and women around him. Before he had cleared the floor of their fluids, she wasn't even sure if someone's blood hadn't already mingled with another. Now, he had all of those people's memories as well. Yet, why did he do this? He had clearly promised them that they would live if they had dethroned Takamura Shingen's wife. Now, Yugao was no stranger to betraying the promises of her victims. Loath she was to admit it, but she wasn't an angel in saving people. She was a shinobi, and an Anbu agent. She had killed many people who had thought they would live through the harsh realities before them as well. Yet, why would a 10-year-old do it? She wasn't sure what he had to gain. I never said they would be physically working at the Red Dragon. They're still working for it. I'll make sure to put their blood to good use. You have to admit getting a new sword must have felt cool, he smirked. Yugao said nothing. She was not going to admit that. At all. Naruto walked out of the conference room. He could still hear the loud pumping of music. He controlled this. He controlled all of this. Though, how he was going to do so was another step. He didn't admit it, but he had nearly passed out from the memories of about 12 underground officers flooding his head. It would take a while to sort between them all. So what are you going to do now? No matter how many memories you amass, you hardly have the expertise to take on people who have been in this kind of world for over 50 years, Yugao said. Naruto chuckled. Worried about me? You're still being more talkative, he said. Yugao wanted to scoff, but her mouth didn't move to her commands. Her silence gave the blonde what he needed. It was too easy to tease the Anbu sometimes. For the past 5 hours, Naruto worked himself on finding himself familiar with the Red Dragon. He had decided to close the facility if only to get that stupid music out of his eardrums for the time being. He also added more blood to his arsenal from the numerous guards who had tried to stop him. Perhaps he should have left 1 or 2 of the officers alive to explain the new management, but it was rather easy for the mob mentality to settle after they saw the 5.10.15 corpses which had laid upon the floor. No one said a word to the blonde. There was no sass. There was no demon talk. There was no cunning wit. Plus, he was sure just Yugao's appearance had deterred them in any more attempts. Not that Naruto minded. It was only making him stronger. Naturally, the memories were definitely taking their toll on him, but he had continued to learn surprising thing after surprising thing. It's a shame none of the Chunin agents are here. It's better to get them used to the new management, but I guess I can't do anything about it now. They'll come eventually, Naruto thought. Now, he supposed he would have to return to the task at hand. Here is a list of all activities conducted by the Red Dragon Group in the last 5 years. Naruto-sama. One of the associates growled out. Not that Naruto minded. As long as they watched their tongue, then he wouldn't cut it off. Maybe. Truth be told, Naruto didn't actually need this information, but it was much better than potentially staring off into space viewing memories around a group of people ready to end his life. With his new abilities he didn't know if they could, but why take the risk? Sheesh. Kidnapping, pillaging, thieving, trafficking routes, times of routine shinobi shifts, and even the annual dates of the next guard shifts. No wonder Yugao-chan couldn't catch these guys. It's like they always knew it would be coming, he said to himself. He leaned back against a chair and he watched the cleaning services perform their duty over the establishment. Also don't mistake Naruto, reading over these notes was mind-numbingly boring. He'd almost rather study the garbage the academy taught than try to make heads or even tails of this nonsense. Granted, the memories helped, but this was going to be a sleepless night unless he got somebody to do this for him, or at least until he got too bored. He raised an eyebrow when Yugao appeared next to him. The last shipment went out about 2 weeks ago. I don't foresee you getting them back bearing outside interference, Yugao commented, not by her own choice, but by one of his orders. She watched him take a breath and place the papers down. He then stretched his back and stood to his feet. Well, whatever. I wasn't really expecting an entire dungeon of kidnapped people. Besides, that's not my original goal, Naruto said. Yugao raised an eyebrow. This hadn't been his original goal. What was it supposed to be then? This couldn't have just been some little side project. It was much too dangerous. Yugao blinked. What was the point then, my lord? She nearly growled out. She had hoped he had not caused her to take more Konoha lives just in the interest of another seemingly meaningless joke. She stiffened when she saw his smile. Tisk. He could read your thoughts, Yugao. She really had to remember that before making random thoughts. Naruto-sama, it is true that our batch for this week has set sail, but we still have those of the premium selection. Former boss, Shingen-sama, always took note of them before sending them out at the end of the month. You can take stock of that, a man said as he swept the floor. Naruto rose an eyebrow. Yeah, that might have been known to him if he had scanned Shingen's memories more closely. Plus, he noticed he was losing concentration. He should have been able to hear those hearts and the flow of blood coming from within the walls. Then again, upon closer inspection, he noticed these hearts were not as sustained as those he could hear from the outside. Plus the blood flow was much slower. I guess not even premium purchases get premium treatment. He mumbled beneath his breath. Good. I'll be gone for a minute. You're all smart men. So, don't do anything stupid. He remarked and disappeared down the hall with the Anbu in tow. No one said anything, but they breathed sighs of relief. Another one quickly cursed. Go get Ko-san and Santa-san here as soon as possible. We can't have the Kyuubi controlling this organization. For our fallen comrades we will make him pay. In memory of Shingen-sama, we also have to get Madam out of the cells. This brat is going to learn not to mess with us. One said and the others agreed. They firmly nodded. Once they did, they went back to cleaning. One growled when he swatted at a small rat which went scurrying back to its hole. Once it was safe, its red eyes gleamed in the darkness before turning around and going deeper inside. Meanwhile, Naruto and Yugao entered Shingen's office room. The latter pushed the desk out of the way and pulled out a red carpet which laid underneath. There is a mystery reference here, but that's beneath me. Naruto remarked. Yugao closed her eyes. Oh God, please not puns. She almost liked him better when he was the angsty brat. She didn't need those now. Both discovered a ladder which cut itself off from the main facility. They jumped down and landed in the center of a much more elegant hallway lined with red carpet, golden lampposts, and wall-lit candles. Naruto turned to Yugao. Really? You guys couldn't pin a guy like this? He asked. She scowled. She really didn't want to think about it. She just walked behind him when he started walking. It didn't take them long to start hearing quiet sobs. Truth be told, Naruto had something else in mind with these people. He watched them chained to walls. They shied away from the light, no doubt because their eyes had been accustomed to a growing darkness. He could see some of them held bruises on their bodies, whether to be made an example of or just from some pure sadistic tendencies of the caretakers. From Shingen's memories, Naruto could tell the man had given clients trial runs on the men and women present. Naruto decided not to delve into the more graphic details. He doubted even he would have been ready for that. But he held his own purposes as well. He kept walking and so did Yugao. Civilian, Jonin, Chunin, Genin, people of almost every nation were present. Each was identified by a little stone marker designating what village they were taken from. They stared at him. Most notably those from Konoha widened their eyes when they saw him. He paid some of them no mind, but he found two hearts pounding amongst the others. His eyes glowed with fierce obsession. Incredibly strong blood and life force was within this place. If he could sample this blood, he had a feeling his abilities would increase in strength. He would have to spar with Yugao to put this theory to the test. Yes, more people to corrupt. More people to bend. He and Yugao appeared near the very back of the hallway. Wrapped in chains had been two names which made him smirk rather evilly. Yugao quickly noticed that both of these names should have been impossible. Yet, though her mind raced with thoughts of scenarios, her body was strangely calm. Hehehehe. Ha 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 ha. Naruto said as he quickly started clapping. The redness of his eyes glowed so well that both stared into them with unwashed despair. I take it back. If there was one thing I had to thank Konoha for, then I'd be handing these two to me, Dadbao. Forget Mizuki Tem. I'm changing the plan. Anbu Nichan, get me my notepad. I have things to write down, Naruto said. Yugao did not like this. She truly did not like this, but her feet moved according to his orders. Please, Hokage-sama. Please, anyone, stop this. Please stop Uzumaki Naruto. As she walked, she could still feel his glee. She could feel him bend down on one knee and usher his hand to one of them inside the cage. The purple-haired Anbu, though a distance away, could hear the chains rattle, as if, accepting his dark salvation of freedom. As if, banishing all hope, just as he had. 3 years. 1095 days. 26,280 hours. How many seconds was that? She wasn't sure. However, she was not aware of much else aside from these numbers which rolled around in her head. All good memories, dreams, and bonds which flowed through her had been crushed into nothingness. She had been down here for 3 years. 3 years of clutching rotten food from bowls and from hearing the screams of men, women, and children who circulated around her. She had stopped trying to make friends. She had stopped trying to escape. Escape was not possible. Yes, she tried to hold to the hope that, as long as she persevered then, maybe she would be able to see her family. Maybe, she would even be able to meet the one who had caused her to come into this situation. However, that hope had long died by the tales woven to her. For 3 years, she had been down here. Weeping and gnashing of teeth became the universal languages with which she was accustomed. The dark became her world. It warped her sense of time, of belonging, and of living. Could she even classify herself as alive? She did not believe so. The lasting memories she had been given before her death had been snuffed out like a cruel flashlight in a dark forest. What did the sun look like? What did the moon look like? She could not remember. Day after day, lesson after lesson, pain after pain, she was surprised she even still knew her own name. She remembered being forcibly dressed up in demeaning attire and presented to all manner of clientele. Absurd prices and bids were placed upon her, but none of them seemed to satisfy her jailer. He gave in to none of their demands. Though forced into humiliation after humiliation, he had not allowed a single person to touch her aside from his wife. The woman had stolen her lips many times. She wasn't even sure when she stopped resisting. She just knew that she had. Yet, every single day that passed she wondered what kept her moving. She was aware of at least 15 different ways she could make it all stop and find pleasure in the afterlife, but she kept pressing forward. Your name is Dog. Do you hear me? Repeat it back to me. Dog, 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 dog. A dog is loyal. A dog does not speak back. A dog listens to its owner without question. A dog is second class to a human. It's not equal. There had been much horror placed upon her in breaking her to speak this name. She did not remember when she had broke, but she definitely had. Perhaps it was after the pain of hot coals under her feet, perhaps it was after the strikes of a whip, perhaps after the nigh suffocation from having her chakra points forcibly closed. These were only a few of the many she had endured. Perhaps the worst was when a Yamanaka had tried to mentally wipe her mind of all of her memories. She had been administered to a doctor because her heart had stopped at least 2 times. To be honest, she wished it had stopped. However, one day, it came to her. She understood why she kept living despite the obvious routes she could have taken to ensure her peaceful death. It was not for the sake of love. It was not for the sake of proving those who had tortured her wrong. No, unfortunately, she was human. She did not have this reason to live for selfless purposes. It was her own burning, smoldering hatred within her body. Hatred for herself for her weakness. Hatred for these people who kept her. Hatred for the person responsible for putting her in here. Why did he not finish her off? If he had finished her off, then she would not be suffering like this. It was all she had left. She ate what they told her to eat. She drank what they told her to drink. All while slowly storing it away in the recesses of her mind, always there, never forgotten. For 3 long years this hatred boiled. For 3 long years this rage manifested. For 3 long years this rage kindled itself. For 3 long years, this rage cultivated itself until she heard the sounds of footsteps. She had a plan in mind. Once he opened the door, with as much strength as the gods would grant her, come hell or high waters, she would wrap her rusted chains around the neck of Takamura Shingen and rip the essence of life from his eyes. His guards would have to kill her or they would watch as she ripped their precious boss's head from his shoulders. She did not think about what she would do when, if she got out, but it was better than the alternative. Just you wait, Takamura Shingen. You would feel all of the rage that Izumi Uchiha had collected for all 3 years of her captivity. Every ounce of love, every ounce of appreciation for anything good, every ounce of hope for a better tomorrow died long ago. He would let her experience the well of despair that she felt. Her chains rattled and the sound of moaning prisoners stirred her. In a drugged daze, she noticed the footsteps stop. Her eyes looked up. This wasn't Takamura Shingen. No, it was that boy. What was his name? She couldn't remember. But she knew she had seen him at least a handful of times back during the moments of her existence that hadn't been so up. Then, she heard the boy laugh. It was not a laugh full of the joy a boy his age should have. No, it was a laugh that she had found herself letting out those nights she laid on her cold bed dreaming unholy thoughts upon all of her tormentors. Izumi was surprised to even see an Anbu with him. He spoke some words to her and, to Izumi's surprise, the Anbu dashed off like they had just been granted an order from the Hokage. You want Takamura Shingen, don't you? He asked. Her eyes lit up with unholy fire. Yes. Dare he ask such a question? Shingen should have been standing right there so he could open the cell and she could watch the blood pour from his mouth when she. Izumi stiffened when she watched the boy kneel down and hold out his hand into the cell. Well, that'll be kind of difficult for you if you're in this cell. I can give you Takamura Shingen, but what will you give me? He asked. His tone of speech. She was starting to recall it. It was very faint, within the dregs of her memories, but it was there. Uzu, Maki, Ruto, she wheezed out, her throat dry. She did not believe him. Why should she? A no-name orphan boy had, in his possession, one of the most powerful underground leaders in Konoha. If he was expecting her to laugh at his joke, then he would be disappointed. Then, she felt something sharp at the tip of her neck. She stared down and widened her eyes when she saw blood dripping onto her cell floor. A dark blade of the same fluid was mere inches from claiming her life. She stared up and she gazed into a sea of red within Naruto's eyes. Why you don't have, she uttered. However, she stiffened when he pushed the blade a bit further into her chest. I'd choose my next words carefully, Izumi-san. I remember you very well. You helped me once. I'll leave it to you to remember when. To think Itachi abandoned you after you loved him so much. Kind of like how everyone abandoned me in a way. He didn't kill you like you thought, Naruto said. Her anger flared. Itachi, 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 Itachi. Naruto rose an eyebrow when he watched Izumi lean forward, the blade piercing her flesh. She stared at him and he stared back. Naruto slowly retracted the blade of blood into his body. He watched her lean over at the drips of blood he left. She slowly circled her tongue around each one. He knew she had no way of knowing if he was telling the truth or not, but in her anger she cared not. If he released her, then she would bring about her own revenge, starting with him. She knew what he was going to ask her. Serve him. Mind, body, soul, and spirit. A slave to any dark order he wished, but she cared not. For in his eyes, she saw the corpses which laid at her feet for all the misdeeds she had suffered. Why a 10-year-old held such eyes, she did not know. Even more so, she was not aware of ever helping him. Minutes ago, she couldn't even remember his name. Izumi remembered the dream of the life she had wanted when Itachi had placed her under a genjutsu. At that moment, she was the happiest she had ever been. She was not expecting to wake up, but she had, and the joy of her dreams came crashing down to return her to a life she loathed. However, she stilled when she heard his voice speak. So, the silent treatment. All right, I'll leave you in there. I can find better uses for you, Naruto said, but her chains rattled with haste. No, she couldn't allow him to leave. What he planned she did not know, but, in the face of her hatred, she did not care what she had to do for him. Ta. Ka, Mura Shin, Gen NN, she rasped out. Naruto firmly nodded. He's all yours. My use for him has run its course anyway. I have the red dragon under my control. True, it's not complete, but I just have to get rid of a few inconveniences, Naruto said. This was actually true. Currently, he had the former leader cleaning up his apartment. That should enough. Plus, it was still an experiment for how far he could extend his control. Under disguise, he had Takamura buying him some groceries. Perhaps he wouldn't have to work off a pathetic orphan's stipend anymore from the Hokage. His wife? She asked. Naruto gave pause for a moment. He supposed he didn't need her for anything important. Though, working off Shingen's memories, then he supposed he did have a sort of temporary assignment for the woman. Do whatever you want to her, aside from kill her for the next 2 months. I do need her alive in one form or the other. However, after those 2 months, throw her to the wolves for all I care. Anything else? Naruto asked curiously. He watched the Uchiha cough for but a moment. Naruto felt blood surge forward. Uchiha, Ida, Kai. She did not ask this. She firmly demanded it. This got a small smile from Naruto. He watched her slowly lean her face over the drops of blood he had left. The blonde had not seen Itachi on his own. He had seen Itachi from the memories of Yugao, Shingen, and even some of the animals the Kyuubi container had seen. He knew he was no match for Itachi. Neither was Izumi. At this current level, to challenge Itachi was going to kill Naruto faster than the blonde knew what to do with. But, the Kyuubi container had discovered something interesting that he wouldn't be able to share just yet. I don't know where he is, but with connections to the Red Dragon I'm sure he'll turn up eventually. Naruto answered. Truth be told, it was possible. Though he was only speaking from the times he had observed Shingen performing business ventures with other organizations rather than his own intuition. Naruto held out his hand into the cell. You have one chance. You can back out now and I'll let you go. You can give up your hate and move on. Unfortunately, I can't do that. Make your decision now before I get bored and leave, he responded, but his eyes gleamed with glee when she immediately lapped her tongue on the drops before her. She then reached and placed her chained hands into his own. Bah! CK, out. Never, she snarled. Naruto firmly nodded his head and he opened the cell doors. With a blade of blood, he discarded the restraints which had bound her for so long. She did not stand. She merely looked upon him. She did not remember helping him, but he had clearly helped her. She hoped one day she would be able to find the memories which could guide her. Yet, she could also feel the intense burning within her body. She could feel his mind and his blood molding her, but she did not fight this. Once the burning ceased, she stood to her feet, just in time for the Anbu to return with a notepad. Anbu Nichan, help her out. Get her food and some clean clothes. Also give her a bath, Naruto ordered. The Anbu said not a word and moved the Uchiha on her way. And what about you? Naruto asked when he walked to the cell over. He spotted another woman. Though it had lost life, her red hair slipped over her face. Her eyes unfocused. Yet, her ears picked up on his voice. Naruto had to have her. Such a powerful life force could magnify his abilities and hopefully his control. Yet, the plank for her name was empty. What's your name? He asked. She looked at him. Her violet eyes couldn't seem to place his form. Whether she had been down here for so long that the light had not granted her adequate sight or not was something for debate. Her skin looked pale and her body seemed withered. I don't remember. I don't even know how long I've been down here. I only know it's been a long time. I have asked the men and women who work here, but I am assigned the label dog. It is all I have to go by, she remarked. Naruto's mouth thinned. His eyes narrowed if only for a moment. He opened the cell door and stood before her. He noticed how she stiffened in front of him. Have they touched you? He asked. She slowly shook her head. He exhaled slowly and knelt before her. His red eyes gleaming in front of her, she felt the urge to reach out and take them. No, I have not been touched. Takamura Shingen merely visits me at least once every 2 weeks. He looks at me, laughs for 10 minutes and then leaves me. As if he knows something I do not. I know dog is not my name, but it is all I have to go on. I heard what you plan to do. Would you help me? She asked. Naruto stood in front of her. No, I'm not going to help you. You're holding on to the hope that I do. You have that same look I did. Other than your name, what do you think was taken from you? He asked. The woman looked at the ground. Angrier and angrier she became. Her face scrunched up and she gnashed her teeth. The ground beneath her feet cracked and Naruto took a slight step back. She then slowly settled. I think something more important to me than my name was taken. Please, let me serve you as well, she claimed. Despite his glee, Naruto kept his visage plain. He knelt in front of her again and stared into her eyes. And what use would I have for some woman in a dungeon who doesn't even know her own name? You have no skills. You have no information I can use. Why should I take you? He asked. She clenched the ground. The woman released a breath. Yes, I don't know my name, and thus, I can be whoever you need me to be. I don't remember what morals I had, so I can do whatever you ask me to do. I don't remember my enemies, so I can hate whomever you wish me to hate. I can love whomever you wish me to love. I'll get it right. If I can't, then you are free to dispose of me whenever you please, my lord, she said, which made Naruto stall for a moment. The only one who had spoken of him in that way had been Yugao. Why did you call me that? Naruto asked. She looked up at him, her eyes as lifeless as his for these days that he could remember. She swallowed as hard as she could. She was desperately thirsty. It seemed appropriate. I won't address you formally if you wish, but it's all I have known, she claimed. Naruto grumbled, but he agreed. It wasn't an uncomfortable title. Perhaps he would have to begin getting used to it. He had only heard it with restrained disdain from Yugao, but to hear it without hostility was rather unsettling from what he had first known. He shook his head. Keep it then. I'll make good use of you. Also, I'm not calling you dog. Let's see, until we figure out your real name, then you will be Uzume Nitsuko, a spin-off of my last name, Uzumaki, he claimed. He watched her stiffen for a moment, almost as if a swell of memories had flourished through her body. She was quick to notice him staring at her when she had returned. I'm sorry. The name just sounded familiar. I will use the name well then, my lord. Will I drink your blood as well? She asked. He stared down at her. He watched her slowly attempt to stand. Her footsteps were clearly uncoordinated, but he paid no heed to that. He held out his bloodied finger to her. Without complaint, Uzume licked the red fluids from his flexed joint. She then swallowed it. Just as with Izumi, Uzume fell over when the burning sensation filled her body, but she slowly exhaled her breath. She could feel the urge to vomit, but by her strength she resisted this feeling. It was as if something within her was exploding and it rocked the chambers of her body. However, she was thankful that this was not a long experience. She then stood to her feet and held herself before him. Her long, red hair flowed down her side. Uzume Nitsuko, my lord. Use me as you see fit, she said. Naruto resisted the urge to laugh. Try as he might, He was still 10. The double connotation was amusing to say the least, but he turned around before he broke the character he had already established. He also had to place some new orders on Yugao. No doubt she was already trying to think of some way use them against him. But the thrill was rather interesting. The two walked out of the cell, although Uzume clearly had some difficulties. She grabbed the handlebars and used them for leverage. My lord, what about them? She asked, pointing towards the rest of the prisoners. His mouth thinned. Try as he might, he could find no reason to eliminate them. Some of these people were very powerful and others were clearly influential. He could make use of them. Actually, now there was a thought. After you've dressed up, you decide what happens to them. I want to see what you'll come up with, Naruto answered. She did not say anything. She just walked after him and out of the cells. They made their way into the office. Uzume stiffened when she saw the guards, but, with gritted teeth, they moved to the side. Naruto only smirked when he passed them. He noticed she seemed to stick to him very hard when in their presence. He only shook his head. He supposed this would be happening for a couple of days, or weeks. It was not so bad to allow this every once in a while. Thankfully, it wasn't difficult to locate Yugao and Izumi. When he had come through the door, it had just been in time to see the former fitted no doubt with the former boss's wife's clothes. Izumi brushed some of her hair from the folders of the dress. I'm burning these when I have the opportunity, she spoke. Truth be told, Naruto didn't care. That wasn't his concern at the moment. Do whatever you want to them. Now then, Anbu-ni-chan, do the same for Uzume-chan. She needs to get cleaned up too. Also be sure to go down into the cells with her later. She's going to make some interesting decisions, Naruto said. Yugao did not want to know what he meant, but her conditioning had made her nod. She led the redhead into the shower. Meanwhile, he noticed Izumi waiting for what seemed to be his first orders. The blonde opened his notepad and scanned some of his notes. He did not feel particularly stronger, but it might have been because he hadn't taken their blood. They had taken his. Perhaps there was a difference to be had here. He needed to think. All right, first things first. Get food. Some actual food. Then, you're going to be training for the next 2 weeks before you kill anyone, Naruto said. He felt it odd to be commanding anyone to be training when he could remember the times he formerly goofed off. He didn't turn around to see Izumi's reaction, but he could see her shadow loom over him. You said I would get Takamura Shingen. You said you would give him to me, she said, her voice cleared from its previous raspiness. Naruto exited the room and she followed behind him, albeit with great difficulty. This continued until they arrived back at Takamura Shingen's office. Perhaps Naruto should be calling it his office now. He took a seat in the chair. And what makes you think you can take down a fully grown man? You're an Uchiha, so I assume you have shinobi training? The blonde asked. Azumi's face hardened, but a tone of embarrassment filled her body. She exhaled with a grumble. She agreed that she had received shinobi training, as a genin. It took Naruto a lot to not laugh. Then again, by all accounts, she was higher ranked than him, being an academy student. And you think it's a good idea for you, who has been in a cell for Kami knows how long, without training in any shinobi skills, can barely walk straight, and looks about as malnourished as an orphan child, to take on one of the highest lords of the underworld? He asked. She glanced off to the side. Okay, so maybe it sounded very stupid when he pointed it out to her so blatantly like that. Perhaps it wasn't the smartest decision in the world. You won't keep him under your technique while I deal with him? She asked. Her anger was slowly raising back up to where it had been. Yes, she was weak at the moment, but she understood the power of a grudge. She had held one for 3 long years. She had no troubles with turning on the one who had saved her. By his eyes, she was also sure that he could tell what she was thinking. He leaned forward on his desk. No, I'm not going to help you. Once you're up to strength, I'm going to release him from my technique. You'll be the one to track him down and kill him. If he's really worth your time, then you should be able to deal with him on your own. If your hate is that strong, then you shouldn't need anyone's help beyond that point, now should you? The blonde asked. Izumi fell silent for a moment. She supposed it would make her feel better to deal with him herself. She also supposed Naruto was under no obligation to help her. Did she need his help? No, she probably didn't. She gave a low grumble, but she acquiesced to this as well. Besides, he can't be the only one you resent in this building. None of the guards made comments about you. None of the clients made demeaning comments about you. There's no one else you hate that you could practice your Uchiha techniques on in this building? He asked. Izumi quickly got where the 10-year-old was going with this. Her eyes hardened. There was no shortage of men and women she could practice with. There was also no shortage of pent-up rage filling her body. However, leave that alone for now. You know, Uchiha Sasuke survived. He's one of my classmates, Naruto answered. The former captive turned around. Izumi frowned. Itachi's little brother. Why should I care about him? Unless you're saying I should be happy another member of my clan is alive and my revenge is pointless? She inquired. Naruto shook his head. Nope. Just letting you know since you'll have found it out later. Alright, you must be excited to get some actual food than the garbage you kept getting here. Go get some. After that, do whatever you want. I don't care how possessive Shingen was over you, he needed someone to look after your health. I'm going to need to know how to fix you, Naruto said, throwing some money he had found on the table. Izumi didn't complain. She merely took the money, bowed, and walked out of the door. That doctor. She hoped this would be the last time she ever had to be touched by her. She must have passed Uzume and Yugao because the door opened again, showing a much more fitted redhead than the blonde had seen in the cells. She looked deathly pale. They would have to work on rectifying that. She was no use to him in this state that he could think of. But, she had important decisions to make and he couldn't wait to find out. He stood up. Have fun. I'll be back later. I have some other things to deal with, he said rather cryptically. The large grin on his face filled Yugao with worry, but she was not permitted to follow him. He waved goodbye to them both as they descended the staircase once more to deal with what lay below. He then closed the door behind them. He noticed the two guards standing there. When I get back, I'd better not hear about any problems, or this place is going to be down 2 more people. Got me? He asked. They quickly got him. Even if they wanted to quickly get rid of him. The funny thing was, he could easily tell that was what they wanted. He wished them luck if they tried. It would have to be greatest luck in the history of this village. Needless to say, that room was -1 guard and he was plus another well of blood to empower himself. Yes, Naruto was beginning to learn that hired help was worthless. Not a single smart one anywhere. Naruto found a lone room. He closed the door and locked it. He sat in the middle of the room and closed his eyes. For the next 5 hours, he would be shifting through the memories of people he had received. He hoped in the coming days he would be able to work on his training now that he had a couple of other participants. But for now, it was time to do a bit of fast-paced movie watching. Izumi Uchiha gasped as she finished her 5th plate of food. After too many years of gruel and slop, she was finding the wonderful aroma of perfectly prepared food rather unorthodox. Plus, it was hard for her to open her eyes in the sun. She had knocked into at least 5 people on her way to feed herself. Never mind that she kept getting comments about her extreme diet plans. She ignored the comments. She felt so pitiful. She had to keep herself from falling to tears with each bite of food. She had given up on having such luxuries. Yet, she was saved by a 10-year-old outcast of Konoha. Try as she might, Izumi was not able to remember ever helping Uzumaki Naruto. Just trying to remember had given her a headache. She hoped these things would come in time. Then again, Spending years of your life in darkness had an odd way of reshaping the perceptions of time and distortions of space. In the time that she ate, she watched dozens of people enter the establishment and leave. Some couples, and others alone. Each of them wore a pleasant visage of contentment and fulfillment. Izumi didn't like it. She wondered if she had worn such expressions on her face. If she had, then she wished she could have erased it from her face. She resisted the urge to scowl when some even waved to her. She did not wave back. There was too much light here. A snarl escaped her throat. In that moment, she recognized how much she had changed. She was finally free, but the chains of darkness beneath Konoha still kept her bound. It was as if the village's sole existence was to drain the entire life from her body. She paid for her food and angrily left the area, ignoring the goodwill sent to her from one of the staff members. She clumsily walked through the village. Stores, some new and some old, passed her gaze. The sun was hot and she felt tired, but she had someplace to go. She kept her head down. She wondered how she looked. Did she seem poor? Did she seem elderly? The clothes she wore felt like fine robes. Though worn by common folk, for her they felt akin to the softest shades of material fit to embrace the human body. For many years she had known only the comfort of rags. It was a nice, if odd feeling. Her stroll took her towards the Uchiha compound. She stared at one of the many doors which led into the compound. Her eyes gazed upon the dirt that she and her mother walked. The young Uchiha recalled her father's will. He strove to protect those around him from harm. She had always wished to be like him. Yet, he was one with the memorial stone now. Where was her mother? Among the dirt and traitors, spoken of about the Uchiha clan and their coup. Yes, Izumi knew. It was one of Shingen's favorite tales to her. He told her how Uchiha Itachi had ruthlessly cut down the men, women, and children of the Uchiha clan. No doubt her mother was among those people. The goodness of her mother, the strength of her service, the courage of her heart, dragged through the dung and mud. It whistled in the dirt because of her clan's accursed desire for power. She remembered believing that no Uchiha worth their pride would summon the Kyuubi no Yoko, but she kept finding belief after belief to be tested. All of this, because of Itachi. Now, do not mistake her. She did not wish to kill Itachi to avenge her clan. She did not wish to kill Itachi for ending her life in the fashion that he had. No, these were not her reasons for such things. No, in another life she loved Itachi. She was sure that somewhere in her heart of hearts she still did. Yet, that only made her rage burn hotter. She took a calming breath. She supposed she should head back to the lair before Naruto would start looking for her. She took one more look at the gates and then she began to walk away. I know it's improper to speak ill of the dead, but I can't help but think, good riddance. Izumi glanced to her side and she noticed a woman standing next to her looking at the gates which led into the Uchiha compound. The Uchiha female frowned before fully turning towards the woman. I mean, you heard the rumors right. It was said that an Uchiha was the one who attacked the village by taking control of the Kyuubi no Yoko. I don't know about you, but I've slept much easier knowing they're gone. The village has been a lot more peaceful, she stated. Was it worth it, Itachi? Was the exile worth it? Was her life worth it? Was her mother's life worth it? Were the years that she spent in physical and mental torture worth it? Was having her dignity, her pride, her feelings, her very being degraded worth this? Forgive her if she did not share in the notion. I suppose it has. Good day, Izumi muttered. She was tired. She hoped to get home and then have that ridiculous doctor take her physical for the blonde who had released her. Good day to you as well. I just think everyone in the village has started to learn that the only good Uchiha is a dead one, she said, and the woman walked off. However, Izumi did not. Her feet felt as if they had just been frozen in severe ice. She stared at the ground. Her body then trembled as if the flames of Hades had washed over her. She faced the woman. Rage filled her eyes. Anger filled her spirit. Death filled her tongue. Huff, 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 Huff. Izumi panted as she slowly regained her senses. In her hands was a large stone that she must have picked up. Its face was awash with the color and scent of blood. Down on the ground were the crushed remains of the woman who had just been speaking to her. That is, if one could even remember what she looked like. She also noticed they were no longer in the street, but in an alleyway. Izumi Uchiha's eyes glowed with the stunning might of the Uchiha clan ocular dojutsu, the Sharingan. She shuffled the stone into one of her pockets. Her eyes hollow when she looked up the woman she had just killed. And the only good Konoha civilian is a silent one, Izumi replied. She dropped the body into one of the alleyway trash cans. Hopefully the stray dogs and gnats would do some of the work for her. Izumi Uchiha stepped out of the dark alley she had somehow found herself in. There was no one to be found. So, she walked out and continued back to the club. She let out a laugh with no warmth. Yes, she had become corrupted as well. A normal life could not fix her. So, this was what Itachi felt was worth the destruction of her clan. This is what Itachi felt was worth the destruction of her kind nature. Then she would show him what she thought of his glorious sacrifice. It was right there, in the garbage along with the rest of Konoha, right where it belonged. One might ask why Ko Hyuga, Jonin of Konoha, member of the noble Hyuga clan, and member of the main branch of the clan, would ally himself with an organization such as the Red Dragon. The reason was very simple. He despised the Hyuga clan. He despised everything the clan stood for. For many years he kept his seething rage beneath a layer of calm, cold, and compassion. He did not like the Hyuga clan. He held burning contempt for the main branch, and the side branch. Yet, the one he held even more hatred for, was Hyuga Hiyashi. Guarding Hiyashi's daughters was a constant test of his will to not exact the revenge he had placed up them. Hyuga Hinata, and Hyuga Hanabi, were the two charges he had been forced to guard and protect. He did not appreciate them either. One was a stuttering weakling, and the other was a child steadily growing into arrogant Hyuga pride. It had been in his plan to have the Red Dragon sell them both off. He didn't plan to do this at the same time as this might have drawn suspicion to him, but he would make Hiyashi Hyuga feel exactly what he felt. He would feel the rage, the sorrow, the suffering, the loss of something precious. It was easy. He had already made the necessary steps to begin with Hinata. It would happen just before the girl was ready to partake in her Chunin exams. It was easy for tensions to arise between nations during international events. Kumogakure learned that after all. So, when he had been informed by Santa Yamanaka that the Red Dragon had been compromised, he had felt angrier than he had ever been in his entire shinobi career. However, this anger was quickly replaced with shock when he learned who had taken it over. Uzumaki Naruto. He thought to himself as he surveyed one of the Red Dragon's main office buildings within the red light district from atop a separate roof. Ko had seen the blonde a handful of times. He was called a failure of a shinobi in the making. He was the dead last of the academy. He was also the holder of the Kyubi no Yoko, the demon fox which laid waste to Konoha almost 10 years ago. Ko refused to believe a boy of 10 years would become capable of such a thing. He had claimed this to be a mere joke. However, Santa had claimed that the boy had massacred the heads of the organization based in Konoha and had Takamura's wife imprisoned. It sounded like a joke that had gone horribly wrong to Ko. What surprised them was that the club was running once again. People could be seen entering with friends, significant others, and lovers. Are you sure we shouldn't have alerted the Chunin unit? We may need them, Santa replied, his eyes firm upon the establishment. Ko snorted. It's a 10-year-old boy, Santa-san. He's late for his bedtime. He shouldn't be pranking and doing jokes in the red light district, and most certainly not to one of the most notorious criminal organizations within the underworld. You didn't even have to come. I could have taken care of this. Ko said. Santa frowned for a moment, but he released a breath. Of course you could, but I still want us to proceed with caution. For all we know, the boy could have gained access to the powers of the Kyubi. It would be the only plausible reason that he would be able to instill such fear in the guards. We will have to try and find Takamura-san when this is over as well, Santa replied. Ko agreed with this, but for now they would have to deal with the current matter at hand. Both Jonin swiftly arrived at the back entrance of the club. The guard stared at them before ushering them inside. Ko growled and wanted to cover his ears from the blazing music, but Santa quickly took him off before he had a chance to. Honestly, he loathed this ridiculous club music. Thank you for swiftly coming, Ko-san, Santa-san. We hope to have this wrapped up by tomorrow morning. We have already begun a search for Takamura-sama, but we haven't held any results. You can find the brat up in the boss's office. Make it hurt for him, the guard said. They both agreed and began to march up the flight of stairs. Every guard they passed wished them the best of luck, but when asked about how the blonde was able to take control, they were all eerily silent. This made the Yamanaka member rather nervous. However, it only made the Hyuga member angrier. They came up to the door and, for once, cursed the fact that Takamura Shingen had such wonderful defenses against an assault from shinobi enforcers. It was terrifying how efficient the man was in protecting himself. Enforced doors, a long hallway of walls lined with a residue that made it impossible to latch on with chakra, and even traps if one weren't careful in looking. Plus there were the lines of guards standing in front of the door. Something feels wrong, Santa said. A corrupt Jonin he was, but he was a Jonin nonetheless. This was not normal. It was as if they were expected. Ko felt the same way, but they had come here to end this farce and neither was about to turn away for fear from a boy. Ko swiftly sped through the hand signs he had learned and shouted. Byakugan, he exclaimed. His eyes quickly formed the ring of the ocular dojutsu of the Hyuga clan. Almost instantly, he nearly fell to his knees and lurched forward. He coughed into his open hands while his fellow Jonin attempted to settle him. Ko, what's the problem? What did you see? Santa asked. Darkness. That was what Ko saw. That was what Ko felt. He could see dark red tendrils wrapping themselves around the door. It was so red he could barely see past the door. He could even see the faint outline of red mist which slowly expelled itself from the under opening of the door. He's released the Kyuubi's power. That has to be it. I sense dark chakra of immense hatred. It's the same time as with the Kyuubi. It's the only explanation, Ko replied. Santa cursed for a moment. So, it was as they feared. Uzumaki Naruto had unlocked the power of the Kyuubi. What would they be able to do? Wow, we're jumping to conclusions here, aren't we, Ko-san? It doesn't take the power of the Kyuubi to take down peons like those working here. I know you're there too, Santa-san. How about we stop with all the shinobi escapades and the both of you come inside? I've had a lot of business knowledge crammed into my head. I'm feeling willing to use it, a voice said over one of the intercoms within the club. Naturally, this did not worry the guests and dancers because they hadn't heard any of it. However, the snarl on Ko's face was easily discernible. Even the guards seemed troubled that their Jonin agents had been spotted. How did he know we were here? The guards said that all of the cameras were not being monitored. What do we do? Ko asked. The Jonin Yamanaka took a deep breath and sighed. For now, the element of surprise was over. Even if that was the case, they were both confident they could still easily take a 10-year-old boy, yet the atmosphere had swiftly changed against them. We'll go. It will at least give us some answers as to where he's keeping Takamura. I can ensnare him with the mind-body switch technique. That should grant you enough time to seal off his chakra points. We'll let Takamura-san find out what to do with him afterwards, he suggested. The Hyuga quickly agreed and both men walked towards the door. Each door opened and they found the blonde sitting in the chair, his fingers intertwined. Santa did not know why a bead of sweat fell down his face, but he could not deny that it had. The air was laced with the smell of blood. They also noticed that the boy was not alone. Two young women, each with masks on their faces, stood at the side of him. Judging by their malnourished features, They were most likely slaves, girls from the decks below. They stood before him. Naruto stared back at them, a grin upon his face. This filled Santa with worry. Why would a 10-year-old be able to smile in the face of two Jonin officers? Ah, Konoha shinobi, inheritors of the will of fire, protectors of the Konoha populace, fierce defenders of Konohagakure no Sato, and members of noble clans. I suppose the phrase, how the mighty have fallen, is rather apt here, but then again, Konoha was always pitiful. I wonder how that old fool of a Hokage and the clan heads of your respective families would feel if I told them about your developments. That'd make for an exciting TV show, Naruto said. Both Jonin frowned. If this is a prank, brat, then it's a foolish one. You fail to comprehend just who you are messing with. If you're bored, then go find your entertainment somewhere else. It is not to be found here. Now tell us where Takamura Shingen-sama is, Santa commanded, a deep tone added to his voice. Yet, Naruto's smirk never dropped. Tell you where Takamura Shingen is. Probably drowning in the Golden Leaf bathhouse in his luxurious private suite. Or maybe he's having an orgy with some prostitutes. Who's to know these days? Naruto asked, a shrug to his shoulders. Oh, he had a lot of time to get over his embarrassment by the time he had gotten out of that closet. Wait a minute. Enough of this. How did you take control of the Red Dragon if you didn't use the Kyuubi's power? There are guards stationed around the building and this club every hour on the hour. You're treading on thin ice, kid. You think you can threaten us? I doubt Hokage-sama would have brat over two Jonin, the Hyuga said. However, both watched Naruto quickly put his head in his hands. He then started crying. They tied me up, Gigi, and took me into this weird-looking bar. They talked about selling me AA along with the rest of the slaves in the lower levels. I tried to get away, but I had to squeeze through the cell bars. My hand hurts when they broke it. I tried SSS so hard. They told me to take off my CCC lofts. This weird LLL lady touched me, Naruto cried before he slammed the table and laughed. Ko snarled. His face was red with anger. Oh, trust me, Ko-san. A child can make their tale believable. All that matters is the way it's presented, Datbeo. Now then, Izumi-chan, go back to practice. We gotta get that body of yours back into shape. Uzume-chan, prepare some drinks. We'll be having a lot of discussion tonight, Naruto claimed. Uzume quickly bowed to him and exited the office to do as he had requested. This left Naruto alone with the two Jonin. Yet, the two Jonin did not attack. The smile on Naruto's face hadn't faded away. It was unsettling. Now then, if we're done with idle threats, then we can finally start discussing matters. And, by discuss, I mean I talk and you two listen, Naruto stated. Santa could see Ko snarl. He could see his partner already making his movements to strike. Naruto removed himself from his seat. Now, truth be told, I don't like either of you. In fact, I downright hate both of you. You might care, you might not, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. You know why I hate you? 'Cause you're Konoha shinobi. Just like you hate me for holding the Kyuubi. I think that's good turnabout. So because I hate you, Ko-san, I'm going to tell you. I know where your sister was sold to and I'm not going to tell you, Naruto said. His grin widened. The Hyuga bursted up from his chair, but Naruto focused his attention onto the Yamanaka. As for you, Santa-san, the money that you were being paid to treat your spouse in one of our allied villages will be stopped until I deem say so, Naruto said. Without a word, Ko charged at Naruto in anger. You overstep yourself, brat. I am not some toy for you to play with. The consequences you will face will be numerous. Ko exclaimed. Even Santa was beginning his hand signs to bind the blonde for long enough that the Hyuga could disable him, but neither was prepared for an Anbu to drop from the ceiling and land in front of them. Yugao blocked Ko's palm strike with the arm guards of her Anbu uniform. The surprise from Ko wasn't even allowed to register before he heard Santa offer a grunt of pain. He turned around and he noticed his associate with his arm locked in a kunai at his throat. An Anbu works for him. What kind of nightmare is this? Ko asked. He turned back to the blonde. My consequences will be numerous, will they? I have to say, I'm impressed it took you so long to attack me. I almost thought I figured you wrong based on the nigh 8 hours of memories I've had to sift through in a closet, but I'm glad I was wrong. You're both as stupid as I thought. Now then, I like to think of myself as better than the rest of the Konoha garbage that walks the streets. So, I'm going to give you both a task. I'm not going to give it to you now, or maybe I won't even give it to you 10, 20, or even 40 years down the line, but if you accomplish it, then I might give you the information you want, Naruto offered. Ko and Santa did not speak. There came a knock on the door and Naruto moved for the person to enter. Uzume returned with the drinks. She placed a tray on the table. Naruto took one. Oh, don't worry about me drinking. It's sparkling cider. I have to say, taking the memories of a woman who worked at the hospital has its benefits. I don't know why you people drink that junk anyway, but I'm not here to discuss dietary habits. Now please, take your seats again and let's discuss your place here, Naruto proposed. What makes you think you can control one of the most powerful underground empires in the elemental nations? Ko asked. Naruto sat back in his chair and placed his feet on his desk. Oh, you'll find that I have a lot of professional experience working in my favor, Ko-san. Neither Jonin knew what the blonde was speaking of, but the Anbu which stood between them and their target had not left them with many options. Both took a seat. They did not take their drinks. Whether this was out of caution or out of mere spite was debatable. Yet, Naruto didn't mind. As long as he was satisfied, then there was no problem. Now, if only he could get some decent ramen. That instant, Naruto frowned. It had been a couple of days and he had not returned to the one place that made him constantly question his growing hatred for Konoha. The one place that one could argue was where people of trust existed. Tsuki and his daughter, Ayame, were some of the very few people that did not betray Naruto's trust. What would they think of him now? Perhaps they would hate him now for what he was doing. Even so, they were not enough. Their kindness was not enough. He stared at the two Jonin. He kept his smile forward, though he was not sure he felt it as clearly as before. I feel like I just aged another 10 years. Where's the fun in being an adult anyway? Naruto asked as he laid on top of his bed. Yugao removed her mask and placed it on the desk that the blonde had brought from the bar office that he had been using. As much as Yugao tried to hate him, a spiteful grin did appear on her face. Shorties like you need their bedtime instead of hanging around criminal organizations, she replied. He turned his head to her and childishly stuck out his tongue. He then propped himself up on his bed. Har har har, very funny. I wonder how the rest of your colleagues are gonna take the fact that you got outsmarted by a shorty. Besides, based on my age, and medical knowledge from some lady, I'm bound for a growth spurt, sooner or later, he said. He switched out his clothes for his pajamas and turned off his light, not waiting for her response to his comments. What are you going to do with the Uchiha and Uzume-san? I doubt they will be comfortable around the guards there, Yugao asked. Naruto turned over in his bed and let out a yawn. He pulled his covers over his body. They're safe. That's all you need to know for now. Also, before you ask, I did mean what I said. Takamura Shingen isn't going to be showing up. He'll play his part as well. Now, I assume you don't wanna be hovering over me all night, so go do whatever you want, bearing the obvious things, he ordered. He then quickly fell asleep. Yugao frowned for a moment. She thought to pull her blade, but she decided that the frustration of failure was not something she felt like going through. In addition, now that she thought if she did manage to kill him, then she would not be ready to explain why the Kyuubi was rampaging through Konoha again. So, she walked away in disapproval. She jumped out of the window and dashed off into the darkness, not knowing that she was being watched by eyes from far away. The next morning, Naruto watched Izumi and Uzume exercise their bodies. He did not trust having that doctor around, but he didn't feel like having the Konoha hospital taking a look at them until he had steps prepared. Along with them, he spotted at least 30 other male and female warriors who had been imprisoned within the cells. It turned out that Uzume had decided to release those who would follow under the boy's rule. Rather unorthodox, but he didn't mind. The others who refused would stay in their cells for his use. Naturally, this wasn't a small group of people, and Naruto had a feeling he would have a headache shifting through the memories of even these Chunin, Genin, and former Jonin shinobi and kunoichi. He would have to save such matters for later. In the meantime, he did have a laugh watching Izumi practice with some of the bodyguards as her training partners. Naturally, she held nothing back, but Naruto wasn't so soft on her that he didn't allow them to hit her back. What good was training if the dummies never retaliated? Of course he made sure she wasn't hurt too badly. Said training dummies would be in a lot of pain if they damaged his goods. Unfortunately, he couldn't exercise the offensive capabilities of his power, at least not with the walking piles of flesh in front of him, but the supportive and defensive capabilities were actually quite interesting. So far, he hadn't been given a headache and the excess blood which had drained seemed to finally be settling. He did feel oddly stronger. It was a rather nice feeling. For one, it felt like he didn't have to commit so much of his strength to restraining Yugao anymore. Sometimes he hardly felt he was restraining her at all. "My lord, I have completed my exercises," Uzume said, which drew his attention. He noticed she had been given quite the sweat, but moved on. "Good. Now then, you do know the group you freed are your responsibility, correct?" he asked. She quickly assured him that she knew they were her responsibility and her consequence. Should she fail, punishments would be in order. "Yes, my lord. They fight well. They do hold a hatred for Konoha shinobi as well, but I believe that to be more for those who kept them here than for the general populace. Others express desire to return home. I only told them I would make no promises," she remarked. Naruto snorted. Of course they would want to return home, but he had other plans for them. "Well, that's going to have to wait. It'll be in another week when the organization reports state that the Red Dragon was overtaken. No doubt I've created a power struggle. It'll be worth it to see how the other organizations fare trying to undermine us. Now then, Uzume-chan, I need you to run a small errand for me," Naruto spoke. "I understand," she replied. She watched Naruto write upon a slip of paper before handing it to her. He then threw her a wallet he had found. It held enough money. Whose it was he really didn't care. He watched her dismiss those who were working and rushed off to complete her task. Truth be told, Naruto shouldn't have been surprised that there was a pit of death below the bar. No doubt many people seemed to gamble upon events such as this, but it made for excellent training where they couldn't surface to do the same. Also, one might be thinking it was foolhardy to place an amnesiac in charge of freed slave maintenance, but Naruto had a good feeling about her. That woman was going to surprise him. Now as for the second one, he sighed when he watched her take down another guard. Something had happened with Izumi. She seemed a lot angrier these days. When she returned yesterday with the smell of blood on her hands, he hadn't investigated. Then again, he did see why Sasuke's clansmen were so fearsome. Though her previous life might have said differently, Izumi seemed very taken to the training he had provided her. She was already receiving instruction from Santa Yamanaka. Hopefully by the time he would begin his training with the Sandaime, then things would start to get interesting. Naruto-sama, the blonde turned around and noticed one of the guards with a letter in his palms. "This was delivered just now. It's about the recent cargo that was just shipped," he said. Naruto took the letter. He narrowed his eyes. He then exhaled. "Fine, everyone go home. But, aside from the Yamanaka, you all better be back here at night time. Izumi, you're with me. I think it's time we paid a small visit to the others. If I recall, we do have a representative from the area that ship was lost in. Besides, it also gives me a chance to discuss some interesting negotiations down the line, Naruto claimed. Izumi grumbled, but given that the training session had been deemed over, then there was not much for her to complain about. She left the training area, took herself a refreshing shower, and quickly met up with Naruto in the lower caverns. He noticed those who Uzume had deemed not releasing. If there was one thing that Naruto had to praise the Red Dragon for, then it was at least capable of categorizing their merchandise based on priority. If I may ask, what do you plan to do with them? Izumi asked. Naruto chuckled as he walked past those of uninterest to him. Let's answer your question with another question. What should I plan to do with them? Naruto asked. Izumi thought this over for a moment. Naruto never slowed his walk and waited for her to answer. Naruto had to say, he could sympathize with Shikamaru a bit more now. All this thinking, there had to be times where one just wished to be lazy. It was nice, but it was definitely not his style. Then again, having so many memories and experiences flooding his head was rather disorientating. I suppose since they were of the group who refused to work for your cause, then you'll find some other use for them. You have many political figures down here and even some other shinobi who still resist. Your central focus would be around them? Izumi asked. Naruto's smile widened. After 2 minutes passed, Naruto in front of a cage. He stared down at a man. The man glared up at him. He covered himself with a barely recognizable, hideously torn blanket. I told that bitch from before that I would rather die than help dishonorable people like you. A child like you will not last long in the world of men, he said, all the while shivers ran down his body from the cold. Izumi glared at the man as well, but Naruto seemed hardly concerned. How about we put that statement to the test? I don't need to last in a world of men. I just need to last in my world. Naruto paused and opened the cell doors. He stepped before the man with his hand extended. Both the man and Izumi watched blood seep from the blonde's open pores before fashioning itself into a blade. He pointed it at the man's throat. And do you know what kind of world that is? Naruto asked. The man fell silent. Though he was cold, the blade of blood felt very warm. It almost felt like it was alive. In fact, his eyes stared down. He could see tiny spears piercing from the blade as if transforming it into a weapon of unseen horror. They poked at the man's neck. His own life essence spilled forth. A world where I get to see the hope and life drain away from everyone, just like Konoha taught me. Just like I can teach you. His voice, a lull that dulled the senses. He took the blade away and turned around while the merely stared at him. His voice and resolve gone. Izumi, take him and prepare him for what we discussed earlier this morning. Anbu Nichan should be heading back soon and we'll need Toxe-Lot-san here to get ready. Also, break one of his arms, Naruto ordered. The man gasped in shock as Naruto walked out of the cell. The young boy turned to the quivering man. His eyes teemed with the color of red. Perhaps it will teach you to not call my girls names from now on. That should be the first lesson for a water daimyo's son. Choose your own words carefully, Naruto spoke and walked away. He turned around a corner and the blood-curdling screams which filled the jail cell made him smile. His eyes turned to each prisoner. Each of them looked away from him, the very blood within their veins racing from fear. No doubt the other prisoners were quite quick to lose their bravado. After all, animals tend to learn their place when the ones with the most bite are dealt with. Uzume frowned as she watched Uchiha Sasuke train by himself. He was right where Naruto claimed he would be. He threw kunai and shuriken with aggression and rage, yet there was some semblance of prodigal skill that she had not seen in most of the other children that she was called to observe. Naruto had tasked her with monitoring a list of children from his academy class for at least half an hour every week. She had finished the Yamanaka and the Nara. Now, she had to deal with the antisocial one. She didn't know why her lord was interested in him, but she wasn't going to go against orders. The young redhead frowned. She did not know why the Uchiha seemed familiar to her. It's not like she had seen him before. Or perhaps she had. She couldn't recall. However, he definitely seemed familiar. She shook her head from atop the tree branch. His kunai throw was off. It was very good for a genin, but obvious improvements could be made. Again, she was not sure where those improvements came from, but they seemed very instinctual. A breath escaping her, she decided to make her presence known. She stepped into the field and she watched Sasuke throw one more kunai before he became aware of the sounds of her footsteps. He stopped his practice. What do you want? If you're here to interrupt my practice then, Sasuke stopped speaking when he stared at the woman. Her eyes looked down upon him, yet surprise was evident upon his face. Keika-san? Sasuke asked, his voice almost a tiny whisper of disbelief. Uzume blinked. It seemed as if the word and its definition were a lost translation to her very being. Excuse me? Uzume asked. Sasuke stiffened. His face then quickly contorted into rage and he turned his head to the side. He then growled and picked up his things. Nothing. What is it? I'm training. If you have nothing to say then get lost, Sasuke ordered rather angrily. Uzume raised an eyebrow, but disregarded the tone the Uchiha had just dealt to her. She reached into her robe and pulled out a scroll. She then held it in front of the boy. This is for you. My master asked me to give it to you. There will be an item inside. Make sure you're near a television when you see it. Have a good day, Sasuke-san, she said with a bow before leaving him alone. Sasuke watched her out of the corner of his eye. Anger flushed through his face again when he looked at the scroll she had given him. He then went back to his training. Meanwhile, Uzume entered Konoha slightly perplexed by the words which came from the young Uchiha. She placed her head in her hands for a moment. The movement of people seemed to fade away. He felt familiar as well, but she did not understand why. She touched her temple. Just thinking about it gave her a headache. Perhaps she should ask Naruto to take her back to the doctor. In the meantime, she would have her other target to work on. Thankfully, Mizuki's apartment wasn't very far. She appeared in front of the door. A quick glance through the window, she noticed that no one was home. Uzume frowned before leaving a scroll hanging off the edge of his door. From the plan that Naruto gave her, she had to leave it on the doorknob this way. She was not sure why, but she did as she was instructed. The redhead then quickly made herself scarce before anyone would notice her. Once she stepped back into the streets she found herself staring at the Konoha populace. These people, this village, and the lands which they all walked, her lord hated them all. He did not ask that she hate Konoha as she assumed he might have. Even now, she could feel the blood within her that she had taken from him begin to boil. Just its heated desire for revenge was fueling her own anger. Perhaps he was making her feel a growing animosity towards the Konoha people, or was he enhancing the inner mechanisms of her mind which housed her memories of her own hatred? Uzume stiffened when she felt the bump of her shoulder with another. She turned around and noticed she had bumped into a silver-haired man. He smiled at her. Ah, sorry about that. Have a good day, he said with a smile before he continued walking. As soon as Uzume felt her eyes land on him she balled her fists. Unparalleled rage filled her body and she could feel a spring of chakra surge from her body hard enough to crack the ground beneath her feet. Her chakra was so great, the shinobi within the vicinity stopped their daily activities and quickly scanned the area for the hostile power which had suddenly come down upon the populace, but it had spread so much that none were able to ascertain the location of it. Uzume even watched the silver-haired Jonin look around, his form suddenly tense and rigid. When he turned around, he saw that she was gone and so was the malice which held the air like a prison. The former slave turned around a corner and breathed a sigh. She did not like him. That man, she did not like him. Was this what her master had? This deep-seated hatred for Konoha people? She could that she had it as well. That man of silver hair. Just thinking about him made her want to run after him and strangle him until she saw the blood seep from that exposed eye of his. She did not know why he filled her with unbridled rage, but she was almost close to alerting a squad of shinobi to her location aside from the ones who were already around. Yet, she felt the need to punch something. She hoped her lord would allow her more training. First the Uchiha and now that one-eyed man. What's wrong with me? She asked before she continued moving on. The power which had surged through her felt very reminiscent. Uzume grunted and touched her forehead. She could feel her head bouncing. Perhaps her body wasn't as together as she thought it was. Then again, she was sure her mind wasn't together either. Uzume kept walking. Her lord had given her other tasks and she would see them done, but when she returned then she prayed for rest. She felt like she needed it. The sounds of club music played above the underground floors while Naruto sat in his chair. He sighed. And to think I have to go back to that pathetic academy like some dressed-up clown. Tisk. Well, it could be worse. At least I'll be able to advance my goals a bit further. Especially if Uzume-chan is finished with her assignments. Izumi should have things in place as well for the coming weeks, Naruto said. His eyes fell for a moment. His tongue cursed. Try as he might, advance his mind as he might, his body could not keep up. He hadn't been sleeping great these days. He pushed himself back from the desk he had been working on. So, how was your day off? Naruto asked the Anbu next to him. Yugao frowned when she looked at him, but she cleared her throat. I've been training. The new recruits make for welcoming stress relievers, she admitted. It was no surprise to either just what she meant by that statement. Naruto's grin widened, but he didn't reply to her. Then again, he had seen the training procedures she had passed on to the new Anbu recruits. Who knew such a young boy could get under a professional shinobi's skin? Again, he wasn't even surprised when she told new recruits to keep their masks on. He knew what she was trying to do, but it didn't matter. If he needed that information then he could always make another command if truly needed. So if I could so graciously know, what is your plan for Uchiha Sasuke and the others? You have nothing but animosity towards him. But the Chunin, Mizuki, has been nothing but fair to you. Why involve someone that you hate in someone who's been fair to you? Yugao asked. Naruto balanced a glass cup on the table with his forefinger. His eyes lingered on the apple cider inside. He then stared at the ceiling. He hoped he could get a massage from his training earlier. You know, it might be that I'm still 10, but I do still hate Sasuke. I at least know why now. After all, I did shift though about 10 hours of business memories. Turns out Shigen and his wife had his own hate as well. So maybe I have an answer for it now. Sasuke was always better than me. He had what I wanted. Good shinobi skills, recognition, family, and the girls at school would practically drop their premature panties for the guy, who says only men are perverts. Naruto questioned off which got a glare from Yugao, but he ignored that as well. From the memories I've had to watch, you ladies come up with some weird stuff, but anyway we're not here to discuss that. Truth be told, I don't know what I'm going to do with Sasuke yet. Perhaps I'll corrupt Konoha's golden boy. Imagine Konoha's reaction when the Kyuubi brat uses the Uchiha to burn the village to the ground. Rather interesting poetic justice, don't you think? The blonde asked. Yugao did not respond. Naruto didn't expect her to. He finished off his drink. Besides, you might think I'm doing this out of spite, but I'm just being what Konoha told me to be. I'm giving them what they all wanted, and I'll make use of any advantage I can get. As for Mizuki, I have wonderful plans for my fair teacher, Naruto responded until both heard a knock at the door. The blonde allowed the person to enter. Both saw Uzume come through. All tasks are done, my lord. I would like to ask for the night off. My head has been hurting since I bumped into a Jonin, she said. Naruto rose an eyebrow. Yugao did the same. Alright, I don't mind that. However, before you go, tell me what led up to this headache. Do you need to go back to the doctor? He asked. Uzume thought over his question for a moment. I don't believe so. It was ever since I had observed Uchiha Sasuke. When I gave him the scroll under the guise of a delivery, he called me Ka-san, Uzume said. Naruto's eyes shined red under the low glow of light within his office. Oh, well, this was surprising information. So Uchiha Sasuke was a bit of a mama's boy. How interesting. Then after I left Mizuki's apartment, I bumped into a Jonin with silver hair. He wore his hitai over the side of his face. He apologized to me, but I quickly got angry when I saw him. I got so angry I almost alert the area to my chakra. Since then, I've had my headache, she claimed. Yugao blinked. It sounded like she had come into contact with Hatake Kakashi, her former Anbu captain. Yugao turned and she noticed Naruto looking at her. She shivered. Oh right, he had seen her memories. It was obvious he also knew that. It was also obvious that she was not going to like the words that came out of her mouth in the coming minutes. I do not like him, my lord. I do not like him at all. I think I slowly understand. Azumi's hate, Uzume replied. Naruto fought hard to keep a grin from appearing and splitting his face. Oh boy, now this was even better than what he had planned. There was a reason he had not delved into the mysteries about Uzume just yet. It was just that. It was a mystery that he wanted to solve. This was an interesting piece. I see. Well, you go get some rest. You'll have training in the morning. You did well today, Naruto remarked. Uzume bowed and then exited the room. As soon as the door closed, Naruto didn't even have to order his Anbu friend to do it before Yugao was speaking. She already knew the order was coming, so it was a save of her mental resistance. Hatake Kakashi. He's the only Jonin I know who matches that description. This isn't going to be a short information rundown, Yugao replied. Naruto placed his feet on his desk. What did he care? He wasn't going anywhere. He allowed her to continue. Thus Yugao Azuki told Naruto Uzumaki, from A to Z, everything she knew about Kakashi Hatake. Sasuke placed his dishes in the sink after eating his dinner. He walked into his room with the scroll the woman gave him. He cursed and then threw the scroll on his bed. He hadn't been able to stop thinking about that woman all day. It was distracting him from his training, and even worse, it was reminding him of memories he did not want to have. The young Uchiha took off the rest of his clothes and took a quick shower. Once this was done, his eyes fell on the scroll once more. He undid the wrapping and unfurled the scroll. Applying the chakra that he had, he noticed a small videotape. He turned it over. The only thing written upon its label was, to Satsuki-chan. It was a name that the Uchiha absolutely loathed. His mother had always said that if he were born a girl then that's what she would have named him. He walked over to his television and opened up the cabinet below which housed his cassette recorder. He pushed the video inside and he turned on his TV. He sat on his bed as he watched white noise fill the screen. It happened like this for about 2 minutes, which quickly annoyed the Uchiha heir, and just before he was about to turn off the TV and destroy the tape, the white noise ceased. Hello Uchiha Sasuke, a garbled and disfigured voice answered from the other side of the tape. Sasuke took a step back. He glanced left and right, but the voice continued. Who I am is irrelevant, where I am is even more irrelevant. However, what is relevant is how much you want to avenge the Uchiha clan for what your brother did to them. Sasuke stiffened. His teeth instantly seethed. He was ready to turn the tape into dust, but the voice quickly stopped him. Good. I have your attention. That got you going, didn't it? Love, hate, sadness, happiness, together, alone, sun, moon, they are all a part of the same coin. For your revenge, Sasuke, how much are you willing to give up? How much are you willing to hate? You see, Uchiha Sasuke. Katsuhi Mizuki. Mitarashi Anko. Inuzuka Hana. I want to play a game, the voice said to the 4 individuals looking upon their TV screens.